you underline it. So you know that it's not an English word, so you just underline it. When you have to underline the two. Z, then you underline it separately. You don't underline it together. Z, underline, then you write your maze, you underline it. So that is a correct way of writing scientific name or the binomial nomenclature. So we're going to classify organisms by their cellular structure. We classify organisms by the way their cell looks like, the way the cell is made up of. And we have two major classes of cells. We have the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic. So when you're asked to classify plants based on their cellular structure, you mention prokaryotic and eukaryotic. What is prokaryotic? What is eukaryotic? Prokaryotic means before, before cell, before the cell. So the organism, this type of cell occurs before the normal cell. Then another thing is that it has a simple structure. Organisms that have it, they have simple structure. The cell is of simple structure. Then another characteristic is that it is not bounded by membrane. It does not have membrane-bounded organelles. When we talk about the cell and consider a typical plant or animal cell, you understand what an organelle is all about. But learn it now that prokaryotic cells don't have membrane-bounded organelle. An example of prokaryotic cell, we have the bacteria, the blue-green algae. So prokaryotic cell, I said before the cell, pro means before. So then it has simple structure. It does not have membrane-bounded organelles. Then example, we have the bacteria and blue-green algae. So when you are asked to give example of prokaryotic cell, you can easily remember bacteria, blue-green algae. Then for the eukaryotic cell, EU means true. EU means true. So it is a true cell, unlike that one. You know, I said it's before the cell. Eukaryotic is true cell. Then they have a definite nuclei. Nuclei is a plural of nucleus. So they have definite nuclei, and they are usually larger and more complex than the prokaryotic. Then they contain more types of organelles. You know, prokaryotic don't have membrane-bounded organelles, but eukaryotic contains more types of organelles. Then examples of eukaryotic cells are cells of all higher plants and animals. Cells, so we have various examples that you can mention. That I just said cells of all higher plants and animals. So we want to consider what are the differences now. We want to put it side by side. The differences between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cell. The prokaryotic, it does not have a distinct nucleus. It's just a simple cell. So it doesn't have a distinct nucleus. While the eukaryotic cell, which is the true cell, has a distinct nucleus. You can see this is the nucleus of this cell. Now, the prokaryotic cell don't have nuclear membrane. It doesn't have a nuclear membrane, while eukaryotic cell has nuclear membrane. Then prokaryotic cell does not have membrane-bounded organelles. They don't have organelles. An example of organelles: nucleus is an organelle, nucleolus, lysosome, Golgi body. You get to know what those terms are. So those are examples of organelles. You don't find them in the prokaryotic cell, but in the eukaryotic cell, you find them. Chloroplast is also an example of organelle. Also, nuclear materials are scattered in the cytoplasm of the prokaryotic cell. Just find them scattered in the prokaryotic cell, but in the eukaryotic cell, they are well organized. They are not scattered. Then prokaryotic cell exists only in simple form. They exist only in simple form. I said they are simple cells. While eukaryotic exists in complex form. Eukaryotic cells exist in complex form. Then prokaryotic cells are primitive. That is, they are ancient. They are old form of cell. That is, when you talk about evolution, they appeared before the eukaryotic cell. That's what is meant by primitive. They appeared before the eukaryotic cell. So while the eukaryotic cells are more advanced, they are more advanced than the prokaryotic cell. Based on the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cell. Based on the cellular classification, we have been able to divide the prokaryotes and eukaryotes into 5 kingdoms. While the prokaryotes, the kingdom that they are positioned is the MONERA. So prokaryotes are MONERA. So when you hear MONERA, the next thing that comes to your mind is prokaryotes. They are all MONERA. The organisms that are classified as MONERA are prokaryotes. But for the eukaryotes, they are grouped into 4 kingdoms. You have the protista, the fungus, the plantae, and the animalia. So there are 5 kingdoms: MONERA, protista, fungus, plantae, and animalia. But MONERA is basically prokaryotes. There are prokaryotes that are in MONERA, but for the protista, fungus, plantae, and animalia, you have the eukaryotes. Now I want to talk about the kingdom MONERA. Like I said, they are prokaryotic. That is, they have the prokaryotic cell. They are the ones that existed before the eukaryotes. They are simple. Then they are unicellular. Unicellular means one cell, a single cell. They have single cell. Then they have some form of filaments of cell. Then they don't have organized nucleus. That's the characteristics of prokaryotes. If you cast your mind back now, I said that prokaryotes don't have nucleus. They don't have a distinct nucleus. So the characteristics of prokaryotes is the same as the characteristics of kingdom MONERA, because every organism in MONERA are prokaryotes. So you can just import the characteristics of prokaryotes and put for the characteristics of the kingdom MONERA. And kingdom MONERA is classified into 2: bacteria and the blue-green algae. The bacteria and the blue-green algae are the 2 classifications of MONERA. And from kingdom, if you remember, I said kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So after kingdom, you have phylum. So the phylum that this bacteria falls into is Sigitophyta. Then the class is Schistomacetes. So what are the characteristics of this class? The first is that they are microscopic. That is, they cannot be seen with the naked eyes. You can't see them with the naked eyes. Then they are unicellular organisms. That's the characteristics of prokaryotes. They are unicellular organisms. That is, they have a single cell. Also, they have different shapes. You have different shapes of bacteria. You have the koki. That's the roundish, or the circular, or the spherical shaped bacteria. That's the koki. Then you have the bacilli. They are the rod-shaped bacteria. We call them the bacilli. Then the spirally, they have the spiral shape. Then you have the vibrio. So those are they have different shapes. Then bacteria, they lack chlorophyll. That tells you that they don't manufacture their food on their own. They lack chlorophyll. Then they are prokaryotes. That's their general kingdom. They are prokaryotes. Then they live as parasites. What are parasites? Organisms that feed on another organism to its detriment. They depend on another organism till they finish the organism. Till they cause harmful effects on the organism. Then sometimes they live as saprophytes. Saprophytes are organisms that feed on dead organisms. That is, they feed on dead organisms. Then sometimes they are autotrophic organisms. That is, they manufacture their food on their own sometimes. Then another characteristic is that they occur almost everywhere. You find prokaryotes almost everywhere: in the air, in dust particles, in water, in soil, in sewage. You find prokaryotes almost everywhere. Then another characteristic is that they reproduce asexually. That is, they don't go through the sexual reproduction, and they reproduce asexually by simple binary fission. Now the other group, the blue-green algae. The phylum of the blue-green algae is Cyanophyta. Then the class is Cyanophyceae, or some people say Cyanophyceae. but I prefer to say cyanophyceae. Then the characteristics of this is that they are also microscopic. You can't see them with your naked eyes. You have to view them under the microscope. So you can be in a place and there are numerous there and you won't know. Then they are also prokaryotes. That is, they have the prokaryotic cell. We talked about the characteristics of the prokaryotic cell. Then they are the primitive algae. I explained what primitive meant the other time. That is, they are the ones that evolved. They evolved first. Prokaryotes are primitive, so you expect the blue-green algae to be a primitive algae. Then, in addition to chlorophyll that this algae has, the chlorophyll helps it to manufacture its own food. It also has a blue pigment. Chlorophyll is a greenish pigment. That's why you find most plants are greenish. So, but in addition to the green pigment, blue-green algae has the blue pigment. That is how it got its name. It has blue pigment. It also has green pigment. So that's why it's called the blue-green algae. Then some of them are unicellular. Some of the blue-green algae, they have one cell. They are filamentous. Then a few of them form a branch filament. They form branched filaments. Then most of the time, blue-green algae are found in water. They are aquatic, both in the fresh and the salt water. You find them in rocks, in damp places where you can find water. You find the blue-green algae where you can find water. Then another thing is that they undergo asexual reproduction by cell division. They also don't go through the sexual reproduction. They undergo asexual reproduction by cell division. An example of blue-green algae, you have the nostoc, you have the oscillus.